Thank you to all my channel members, including my fan appreciation level members and my contributor level members, for helping support the YouTube channel. Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I have a video recommending fantasy connected to historical fiction. So, in this video, what I'm going to talk about are primarily fantasy series that have a lot of history behind them, in terms of they were inspired by history, they're based on history, they're an alternate history, things like that. And so I'm going to talk about 5 series in particular that are all very entertaining series, and also series that I believe that have a lot of just educational value as well. Now, there's 2 standalones that are going to be honorable mentions because they don't fit this category exactly the way I would normally handle it, but I wanted to include them. One is Eyes of Silver by Michael Stackpole, which has its roots in a ton of history, particularly a lot of Asian history. But I know this cover is awful. I know the cover is awful, but it is a really, really good book with a lot of great Asian history introduced. But another standalone, actually a book I read earlier this year, which is Babel by R.F. Kuang. Now, this book is super niche in terms of who the audience is going to be. It's a book analyzing colonialism. And the book itself is not exactly historical, but it's looking at historical themes and twisting events. And it's really fascinating. And R.F. Kuang will show up again later up on the list. So I just thought I'd mention that. Well, we're going to tattoo my top 5 fantasy series for historical fiction people. If you want to read a fantasy that connects to history, if you want to read a fantasy that works for history buffs, I got you. Now, none of these series are perfectly accurate or even really faithful to history, but they will invigorate, in my opinion, they will invigorate your love of history, your love of fantasy at the same time. So I'll start out talking about the Winter Night trilogy, specifically Girl in the Tower. This is a trilogy of books that is set in Russia, early Russia. I believe it's like the 11 or 1200s Russia. But the first book is The Bear and the Nightingale. The second book is The Girl in the Tower. The third book is The Winter of the Witch. Now, I can't really recommend the third book. I just don't think it was a good book. And the first book's only fine. But the second book, The Girl in the Tower, is intricately connected to Russian history. And not only that, but it also looks at the way that Russians use names and naming conventions. And at the back of the book, Catherine Arden includes a little summary and explains how the nicknames work, how all the prefixes and suffixes and stuff like that on names. And it was really fascinating. And when you read the book, read that at the back of the book first, and then read, which I think it's at the back, anyway, read that first, then read the novel, and you'll appreciate the way that she just gets how Russia works, because Catherine Arden used to live in Russia. And so this book in particular is worth the read. I'd say even more so than, you don't have to read the first book, I don't think. I think you could just pick it up here, but Girl in the Tower just handles history with fantasy really well. It's very light fantasy, though. You also have my number 4, which is going to be the Rhyr trilogy from Baen Books by Gregory Frost. It's not a trilogy. It's actually going to be like a tetralogy or a quintology. I don't know how many books it's going to be. But 3 books are out. Book 4 is going to come out next year. And this is a trilogy set about, it's set at different periods of history. The first book's like the 1100s-ish. Second book's like the 1300s. Third book's like the 1500s. It's kind of like the Pillars of the Earth. It's just each book in that series, the King's Bridge series, has taken place over different time periods. Anyway, Thomas the Rhymer is who this is about, a character from a ballad, a very old ballad. And so this author, Gregory Frost, takes Thomas the Rhymer, but tells his story fighting evil elves. We're not talking about elves like Tolkienian elves. We're talking about like evil, monstrous, otherworldly, alien, demonic elves. And but it also is set during the 1100s-ish time period, and so because of that, you've got some medieval storylines, some medieval kind of history being hinted at, and then you get into the Elizabethan era in the third book, and also the second book, it has some Robin Hood stuff where he's exploring the myth and legend of Robin Hood. It's really fascinating the way that he blends history with fantasy in this series, so that's why I recommend it. That's my number 4 recommendation. What about my number 3 recommendation? Well, that's going to be R.F. Kuang again with the Poppy War. The Poppy War has its roots in Chinese history, specifically the Sino-Japanese War and I'm forgetting the name of the war right now. That it's also kind of based off of. So forgive me for blanking on that. But this book has its history that it's kind of based on, but also tells an original story. She explores themes about war really well, and I'm very fascinated by the way that she brings in other cultures to her writing, and I think she does a really good job of it. So this whole trilogy is just great. Particularly the second book is my favorite of the trilogy. That's actually not always the case. The second book's not always the favorite of a trilogy, but that's happened a couple of times with these. Anyway, let's talk about my number 2 recommendation is going to be the Judas Blossom, or the Nightingale and the Falcon trilogy by Stephen Arion. This is a trilogy about the Mongolian Empire, specifically about the Mongolian Empire as it approached Persia. And Stephen Arion is able in this trilogy to tell history, change it a little bit, and it still be true to the essence of what that history was, and also tell an epic fantasy political story. The political story in this trilogy is just tremendous. It takes the real character of Hulagu Khan, and it basically makes him the villain of the story. And it basically has a bunch of characters who hate Hulagu. There's a Persian soldier who becomes one of Hulagu's bodyguards who hates him. You have one of Hulagu's many concubines who hates him. His son who hates him. You have all these characters. His wife who hates him. Everybody who hates Hulagu. But the whole question of the series is who's going to kill Hulagu and who's going to take his power from him. And part of this is rooted, again, as I said, part of it is actually rooted in history. Some of it is made up. Of course, the magic in the book is made up. Duh. But it is tremendously written. And I think this is, in my opinion, the best use of historical fantasy. The best use of, look, this is historical fiction that identifies as a fantasy, because it really is all about the historical fiction here. If you just took a little bit of the magic stuff out, this would be categorized in historical fiction shelves. So Stephen Arion did a great job. Every book in the trilogy is great. The third book lands so well, so I highly recommend this trilogy. But what's my number 1 recommendation? I'm going to say it, and you're going to laugh, but walk with me. Just walk with me. It's actually 2 series that you have to read together. You have to read them together, otherwise it doesn't work. And that's going to be the Accursed Kings series, which is an actual historical fiction series, and the Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones, from George Martin. Now, you might start out thinking, Jonathan, why are you recommending Song of Ice and Fire? Like, everybody's read that. Or you're thinking, that's not historical at all. Okay, first of all, the Accursed King, let's talk about the Accursed Kings series first. The Accursed, and I'm recommending them you read them as a pair because they go together so well. The Accursed Kings series looks at the history of France in the early 1300s and looks at the Capetian family as king after king after king just keeps dying. Just boom, boom, boom. All kings keep dying. And so there's so much turmoil and turnover in the leadership. And there's civil wars that happen. There's all this kind of stuff. The characters from here are real life people that the author has just kind of written scenes for, written dialogue for. The events all in this book happened, but the characters are all real. It's just what they say is unique. Well, Game of Thrones is eerily similar. The plot points match so well. The characters match so well, and the Song of Ice and Fire series has a lot of thematic ties to the War of the Roses that happened in England, but also the Capetian turmoil of the 1300s with the Accursed Kings. Don't believe me? The blurb at the top of the book says the original Game of Thrones by George Martin himself. So he obviously meant it to kind of be an homage, because he's a huge fan of this series. And so I recommend reading these together because you will appreciate both of them so much. The actual history and then the fantasy stuff. If you're like, man, I love the actual history, but I wish it had dragons in it. Well, this actual event series, You just add in this stuff. So these I'm recommending together. I know that that's kind of a stretch, and you're like, it's not based on real events. It's not set in our world. Okay, yes. But just trust me on this. They work so well together. I know that Song of Ice and Fire has its explicit moments, and I don't like that. But if you can get past that, there's so much value in the history and the political discourse in both of these series. The political ideas, the political themes in these books are just tremendous. So those are the historical fantasy type stories that I'm recommending. So if you've read any of these, let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.